right before puberty. At the age of about 12 or 13, which is when a child begins to enter into takalluf, a hormone is literally released which will destroy all of the neurological connections that have not been developed in those 12 years. So you're basically, at a certain age, that's all you have for the rest of your life to work with. Now it's massive, and most people will never use all of them. In fact, most people, the latest estimates is that we're using less than 0.1% of the neocortex. Less than 0.1%. That is the latest estimate. Now I think that's high, personally. But that's what they say, and so I'll go by that. It's a dhanni thing. Allahu alam how much is being used. But traditionally, I believe the only way that you could have an individual like Imam Suyuti, or Imam al-Nawawi, or Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, or Aisha, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, that you could have these type of intellects was that they had fath from Allah, an opening from Allah, and there was a massive brain capacity was being utilized, which comes from a deep state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can see that the child between the birth and the age of 1 and really up to the age of 2, there's massive development going on. And this is what's called the R system of the brain, because we have a triune brain. It has 3 aspects. And the R system is the reactionary brain. They call it the reptilian because of the evolution, the whole theory of evolution. But the idea here is that the child, if you notice when they're first born, they're grasping, they're getting into their bodies. The neurological system is not fully intact, so they can't touch things with any dexterity. And this dexterity is acquired over a time, and there are ways to stimulate that, which happen and occur naturally if they're allowed to. And then you move at the age of 1 with the beginning of the limbic system, and that will go on. If you look, the R system will go to the age of 7, which is an important thing, because by the age of 7, then their basic neurological system is intact to enter into serious study and the acquisition of knowledge. And this is why in the traditional Muslim cultures, serious study began at the age of 7. Ad-dibuhum li-sab'in is after la'ibuhum li-sab'in, from the tradition from Sayyidina Ali, to play and nurture them for 7 years. And playing has to do with dexterity, of teaching the body how to enter into its inherent nature. And then at the age of 1 to the age of about, right there you can see 11, the limbic system, which is the emotions, are going to be developed. And children go through these stages. And the first stage, interestingly enough, is called trust versus mistrust. Generally in the Western psychological, what they call developmental psychology. And it's a useful, I think, science because it follows certain patterns because they come out of observation. And trust versus mistrust is about whether or not the child can trust the caregivers, the mother and the father. And this has a deep and profound impact on the child, whether they're able to trust human beings later on in their life. And then you move, you can see at the age of 4, the beginning of the right hemisphere. Now the right hemisphere is that which deals with the play, the imaginative, the creative side of the human being, because we have a split brain to the right and left hemispheres. Now at the age of 7 is right when the left hemisphere activity comes in, and this is when children can learn. Because left brain deals with learning, language acquisition, mathematics, these type of things. This follows the Islamic model, which is that you should begin serious study at the age of 7. And to begin serious study prior to that, traditionally the Muslims did not begin other than rote memorization, which began at about 4 to 5 years old, at very gently and very easy initially. And then at about the age of 6.5, about the age of 6.5 to 7, then the teacher, the mu'addib, would become more firm in his teaching, imparting the Qur'an by rote. Now, one of the things about educating children is that children have a massive capacity to absorb information, but they have very little understanding. This is obviously, for anyone that has an ounce of reflection, is because for the first 7 years of education, there should be massive rote memorization taking place. And the first and most important and primary thing is to teach them the Qur'an. And this is what every single Muslim civilization has done. And you will find no greatness in the Muslim world that wasn't founded on an educational system that was based on the memorization of the Qur'an. None whatsoever. And you can show me in the books, and you can't. It's not there. Every single Muslim culture that develops science, technology, governance, ethics, philosophy, anything of the Islamic achievements that happened traditionally were based on educational systems that spent at least 3 or 4 years in rote memorization of the Qur'an. And this is not a trivial pursuit. Absolutely not. Because the brain, the effect that the Qur'an has on the brain is massive. And if it's coupled with understanding and knowledge, which obviously there was a separation that took place in the Muslim Ummah. I mean, something went deeply wrong in our educational institute because of the condition of the Muslims now, obviously. But the separation of the Muslims from the Book of Allah was a primary intention of the colonial powers. And we have documented evidence of this again and again, of seeing the necessity of ripping the people from the Quran. And you can see it in Ataturk, taking away the Arabic script and putting the Latin script. You can see this done in Malaysia, where people traditionally learned, also in West Africa, amongst the non-Arabic speaking countries, where they had Arabic scripts, they learned to read the Quran, they wrote their language in the Arabic language, and despite that, these kuffar convinced these hypocrites and basically puppets to adopt the Latin script, which has nothing to do with our culture or civilization, in order to elevate these people, right? In order to take them out of their dark ages into the enlightenment of 20th century Western civilization, right? So now you go here at from 7 until about 15, you see the right brain begins to finish it, and then the left hemisphere will go on to about the age of 18, and then you move into the deep ability to understand will start taking place at the age of about 15. Now, interestingly enough, 15 is traditionally the age of taklif, if puberty does not manifest. In the Shafi'i madhab, 15 was the age at which taklif became incumbent upon somebody who did not show outward signs of, and that's because of full maturity of the brain. So they had an understanding of this by firasa, that this would take place. Now, could you move to the next slide? Now, I just want to look at how dark this system here. This is something that I did called, I'm calling it the kafir model, where fact is only authority. But fact is always as interpreted by the teacher. It's never an objective thing, you see, because if you go to one school, they might believe one. Like if you go and study evolution in France, it's very different from studying evolution in America. They have completely different views on quote-unquote fact. But yet at the lower levels of schooling, they will teach children all of this science as if it's fact. They'll teach you the table of elements as if this is fact. What you learn as you move into graduate school, where they teach you the secrets, just like in Freemasonry, when you move up the ranks and you get your degrees. You move up by degrees. You get your secondary degree, and then you get your BA degree. I mean, it's interesting. They use the same Masonic terminology, and then at the age of about, when you move into the PhD, what they'll let, the secret they let you in on is that really there are no facts, you see. And this person who's been indoctrinated for the last 16 years is, there's no facts? You mean I can criticize everything? And that's what they expect you to do for your PhD. You have to criticize something. You have to break it down. You have to tear it down. You have to rip it apart. You have to show how, no, it's not. He got it all wrong. And here's why it's all wrong. And that's called deconstruction. And this is what they want to do, deconstruct. In Arabic, you say yahdim, right? We say nibni. We want to build. We don't want to deconstruct. We want to build. I mean, why would you want to deconstruct something? You see? And we want to deconstruct what they have constructed, which is their deconstruction. Now, if you look at this, this is like an inverted pyramid because the teacher and the subject are on equal level. They never let you know that the teacher doesn't know a lot of stuff as well. Right? It's always as if they're on the same level there. And the student is the recipient. He's the recipient of all of this great information. This is what Paulo Freire, the South American teacher, called the banking system of education. The child is an empty bank account, and we just fill it with all of our wonderful information.